Flippity flop.
What is up, my friends? Today we're going to be checking out every single Street Fighter game that ever came out on a home console. So let's go all the way back to 1987 to start it off with the arcade hit Street Fighter. Greatness has to start somewhere. And in 1987, Capcom brought the game Street Fighter to the arcades around the world. And especially in the US, this game was very popular. At the time, there was nothing like it as far as one-on-one fighters. Beat-em-ups were starting to become popular. We saw games like Double Dragon, but this was like a one-on-one fighter that was really good for its time. Although it doesn't look like much these days. It's aged. It's clunky and the sound effects aren't the greatest, but going back to 87, this was as good as it gets, man. Before this, we had games like Karate Champ as far as one-on-one fighters, and this game really set the stage for like a fighting game phenomenon, which was Street Fighter 2 when that came out. Now, we're not going to get into Street Fighter for the NES. Not even going to spend more than 30 seconds on this game. As you can see, it's just horrible. I feel bad for kids that had no other choice but to play Street Fighter on the NES with 2 buttons. My heart goes out to you. But Street Fighter 2, this game was an absolute phenomenon. I was probably like around 13 years old. In 1991, you can find this arcade unit in every single pizzeria in my neighborhood, movie rental place, movie theater, the arcades. This game was everywhere. I remember, just to get on the way home from school, I hit up my local pizzeria, and there was like a line of kids just with their quarters on the arcade cabinet waiting for their turn. And this was just amazing, and I couldn't wait. It was like a dream come true when I found out Street Fighter 2 was going to be coming to home consoles, and the Super Nintendo was going to be the first console to get it. And at the time I had a Genesis, most kids did. That was like the cool system for teenagers. And I went out and bought a Super Nintendo just for Street Fighter 2. And I remember Street Fighter 2 was $70 back then, back in like 91. But yeah, this was one of my favorite games of the decade. And then we saw variations from this Street Fighter 2 game. A year later, we got Street Fighter Champion Edition, which featured 4 additional characters. You get to choose, the boss characters that were in the original version of Street Fighter 2. And then moving on to Street Fighter 2 Turbo, which made the game a little more fast-paced. You can actually, the home version, you can adjust the speed of the game, and there was some tweaks to the characters to try and give the game a little more balance. We had some characters got some extra moves to even things out, because Ken and Ryu were the most dominant characters in the game, so they gave a couple extra moves to some other characters to try and bring balance. And then we saw Super Street Fighter 2, which gave us even more characters. 4 more characters were added to the mix. You had DJ, Fei Long, Nighthawk, and Cammy. Excellent game. Oh, it's beautiful. All those games can be found for the 4th generation, Super Nintendo and Genesis, and they were in the arcades. And when the PlayStation came out, that's when we saw, Street Fighter 2 in its heyday. More Street Fighter games came out during that decade in the 90s, and especially on the PlayStation than any other console out. And by the mid-90s, we had a series called Street Fighter Alpha Series. Now, Alpha means, well, these games took place before the events of the Street Fighter 2, the original Street Fighter 2 tournament. So we saw some of these characters in their younger ages. You'd see, young Ken, young Ryu in training, and it was a great series that came out like in 1995. I think we first saw Street Fighter Alpha. 10 characters starting off with, some of the original characters from Street Fighter 2, and then a bunch of new characters. And then, we saw several sequels from the Street Fighter Alpha series. We saw Street Fighter Alpha 2, which further branched off with some newer characters. 18 characters in total, which was, it's a lot of characters to familiarize yourself with. Excellent game. This can be found, you can find these on the PlayStation. There's also an alpha anthology set that you can get for the PlayStation 2, which will have all the alpha games on one disc. And then, you know, the next game in the alpha series was Street Fighter Alpha 3, which was considered, you know, the best of the alpha games. It's the most complete, you know. Which each alpha game, the game, you know, improved on the previous one, just like most sequels, right? But Alpha 3 would be the one that you would want if you have all the alphas. You can get Alpha 3 on the PlayStation 2, what was it, 7th generation, 30 amazing characters. Great game to play, even today, you know. This is another one that's available on modern consoles, and I'll get to that at the very end. With such humongous popularity within Street Fighter 2, they spawned a movie in the 90s with starring Jean-Claude Van Damme as Guile. I didn't give this movie much of a chance in the 90s. You know, I tried to watch it. It was just corny, cheesy. You know, I definitely steered clear from this game, you know, Street Fighter 2, the movie. Now, this game featured the same, you know, digital motion capture technology that Mortal Kombat used, you know, digitizing a real person and throwing them in the video game. And this was on the PlayStation. You know, I didn't give this game much of a chance up until recent years when I acquired this game, and I kind of like fell in love with it. It's you know, I really enjoy playing this game, but this was a game I definitely did not give a chance growing up. But it has a really cool storyline. It follows the storyline of the cheesy movie, which is actually not cheesy during the video game. You know, all the actors that were in the movie are digitized within the game. I like it. It's kind of like a cool little nostalgic, cheesy 90s game that I enjoy these days. And I highly recommend this one for the hardcore Street Fighter 2 fans. You need to get this game, Street Fighter 2 the movie. As we push towards the late 90s, video games are starting to go, you know, 3D. So we had Capcom take its little dab at 3D video games for 3D fighters. You know, we had Sega put out, you know, the Virtual Fighter, which was an amazing game. Tekken was also another 3D fighter that was just coming out, along with, like, you know, Battle Arena to Shinden. So Capcom came out with Street Fighter Alpha EX. This was basically, you know, a Street Fighter game with 3D characters. You know, the characters were kind of have that polygon look. The dawn of 3D video games look dated today, whereas pixelized sprites kind of hold their own. But you know, the game is pretty good. You know, it's not going to be one of my favorites of the Street Fighter games, but if you guys are into it, give it a shot, right? You have Street Fighter EX plus Alpha, and then you also have Street Fighter EX2 plus. Street Fighter EX Plus came out in '97, and EX Plus 2 came out in 2000. So those are your three-dimensional Street Fighter games. Now, there was some great Street Fighter spin-off games in the 90s, kicking off with Marvel vs. Street Fighter. This game came out in 1999. It was the first of those Street Fighter games that mixed in superhero characters, you know. Marvel vs. Street Fighter went on to become Marvel vs. Capcom, Marvel vs. Capcom 2, which was an exclusive on the Dreamcast, which makes that game very expensive to collect for. But yeah, Marvel vs. Capcom 2 is probably my favorite of all the Marvel Capcom fighting games. We even had in '98 X-Men vs. Street Fighter. That appeared on the PlayStation as well. This was another great, you know, fighter. You got to play with the X-Men characters. Awesome game. And so let's go over a couple of physical discs that you can get, you know. And that is, well, for the PS2, the Street Fighter Anniversary Collection. You can get, this game has 2 games. It has Street Fighter Third Strike on here, which is only available, for the longest time it was only available on the Dreamcast. You can only get Street Fighter 3 Third Strike on the Dreamcast. Then this came out several years later, so you were able to get Third Strike on the PS2. For modern consoles, there's another way to get Third Strike, and we're going to talk about that at the end of the video. So if you want to get Street Fighter 2 Champion Edition, you got Capcom Volume 1, Capcom Classics Volume 2, They got all the Street Fighters on there, the original Street Fighter 2s and Street Fighter 1. These are great to have, these two compilations. Now, another game that was absolutely phenomenal for the PlayStation 2, and that is Capcom vs. SNK 2. This is one of my favorites for the PS2. One of my favorite fighting games on the PlayStation 2. You had an amazing variety of characters from SNK, Neo Geo characters, and you have all your favorites from Capcom clashing into one game. Great sound effects. This game had phenomenal music. The gameplay, everything about this game was just phenomenal. I've talked about this game a couple times on the channel. And it even featured 3 versus 3 fighting, which was really cool. You can pick 3 characters, 3 on 3. I highly recommend this one if you still collect for the PS2 and you're a Street Fighter 2 fan. You gotta get this one. Price is starting to go up on this. So we've talked about the original Street Fighter from the 80s, the Street Fighter 2 phenomenon from the 90s. Now we're moving into the PS3, Xbox 360 era. And for then, on the PS3, we just saw dramatic improvements in graphical prowess, animated cutscenes. You had online battles, online ranking. This really took Street Fighter from the arcades and brought it to your home with the ability to play people online. That was Street Fighter 4. This was available just about on every console during the 8th generation. You had 35 characters, 10 new characters that were never seen before. I spent more time playing this fighting game than any other fighting game during that era. I think I played Super Street Fighter 4 and Tekken Dark Resurrection the most during that era. This was just a phenomenal game. And you can't get this disc on a compilation, any other kind of compilation. So if you want a Street Fighter 4, you have to get it, for the Xbox 360 or the PlayStation 3. And another great Street Fighter game during that era was this game, Tekken Cross Street Fighter 2. Tekken vs. Street Fighter, that's what I call it. It was made by Capcom. Hey, if you're a fan of Tekken, you're a fan of Street Fighter, this is a no-brainer, must. And the gameplay is really, really good. You can choose from, the entire library of Tekken characters and the Street Fighter characters. And it's just really cool. You have tag play, just like Tekken Tag. You tag the characters in and out. You can perform combos and tag in your teammate as you're in a combo and have them finish off the combo. Really cool combinations you can get off here. Great game. As you can see, the graphics are beautiful. Sound, everything about this game is phenomenal. I highly recommend this one for Street Fighter collectors. Moving on to the modern generation, we saw Street Fighter V. Now, this is a game that's been out for a few years now. Originally, it came out, Street Fighter fans were very annoyed because they didn't give you a full roster. You've seen now in this video leading up until this point, the rosters on the Street Fighter games were humongous, So Street Fighter V, they didn't give you a full roster. And this was going to be like a game with microtransactions, They were going to come out with seasons and you'd be able to buy additional characters as the game, went on. But recently, at the end of last year, Street Fighter V Champion Edition released, and I actually covered it on the channel. You pay one price and you get the entire roster, and that's more like it. I think I might have paid $20 for it on sale with the entire roster. And this game still has a very active and healthy online server. Every day if you go on there every day, you'll see daily challenges, character skins to unlock, tournaments. Like right now, there's a qualifying tournament that's going to take place in November. Test your skills. It's a solid game. I would say it's the queen of the crop. The best of all the Street Fighters. You can say this is like the most well-polished one. But it really comes down to personal preference. In my opinion, all the Street Fighters are great except for the original. I can't take the. So yeah, I highly recommend getting Street Fighter V. Or this right here. It's the Street Fighter 30th Anniversary Collection. Now this disc has 12 Street Fighter games, you know, a large variety of the games that we just talked about in this video can be found on here. And what's great about this disc, right now it's very cheap. You have the ability to play the original Street Fighter 2 games from the early 90s. You can play them online, and there's like this global leaderboard, rankings, and I just got this game, and I'm really looking forward to playing this. They got the original marquee artwork is around the base of every single game you play. It's just beautiful. I mean, they look like exact ports, you know, from the arcade. It looks like you're viewing it from the arcade unit. You won't see any pixelization. Everything's smooth. Absolutely, as you can see, it's just beautiful. And this even has 2 versions of Street Fighter 3 Third Strike that I've never seen anywhere else on a console, and that's Street Fighter 3 New Generation and Street Fighter 3 Second Impact. So it's got a nice variety of Street Fighter games, all in one price, with the ability to play online. This is a must. And this is available for PlayStation 4, Xbox One, your PC, and the Nintendo Switch. So there you have it, folks. Street Fighter from 1987 to modern times. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Maybe you learned a thing or two about, you know, the days of Street Fighter. And we'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching, everyone. Peace!